If we raise the mirror up to nature, we shall find God and what He means. I am that I am. I am the beginning and the end. One of the most mystifying yet intriguing questions of all time is the question concerning the entity of God. Every nation and creed has set its own seal of individuality upon this mysterious something called God. God is the mainspring that is responsible for all that exists within His great universe. Yet it is the very simplicity of God that makes Him so elusive. Theologians and scientists have painted such fantastic and complicated pictures of life that it seems almost impossible to find God amongst their parchments. God is always showing us His image every day of our lives. Let us take one of the most beautiful and yet commonplace examples, that of parenthood. This is a manifestation of God and His desire to love. From parenthood we can trace the scheme of the universe, and that is a scheme of beneficent parenthood. Incarnate and discarnate, we are all the children of God. That wonderful essence which permeates all the universe. Each one of us is a separate intelligence given off by the fountain of all wisdom and love eternal. To say that parenthood is analogous with God's universal scheme means that we all have our lessons to learn under the divine rulership. Humanity is like the child, it must grow nation by nation and learn its lessons. Like the child, it is sent to school on earth through mortal parenthood, and according to each individual's progress, so will he be rewarded. The boy at school will go to a higher form each time that he is worthy, but if he be not worthy, then he will return again to that same form until he can master the lessons taught there. And so it is in God's scheme. The forms in the school are the states of evolution. Earth is the grossest and lowest, and each individual will continue to return to Earth until he or she has learned its many lessons. When those lessons have been learnt to the full, then will come the prize, which is a fuller realization of cosmic life and its meanings. Those who are not promoted go home for their holidays, symbolized by mortal death, a throwing off of the body, the school clothes, until the next term begins. They will then take up their earthly garments again and pass through another term in the mortal school of earth. The master knows that some have learnt their lessons well and have passed on to a higher schoolroom, and he will try to explain this to those left with him for a further term of schooling in the old lessons. They will then take up their earthly garments again and pass through another term in the mortal school of earth. The master is patient, having passed through the trials and troubles of childhood and schools himself. He has learnt his lessons and is now initiated sufficiently to help those younger ones along the roadway of life. He is symbolical of the masters and teachers who, through the ages, have come back to earth and have taken their share in the uplifting and schooling of its children. In them dwells the Christ spirit, for they have come to a fuller and nobler conception of what cosmic life really means. The time has come when spiritual knowledge must be sought by mankind, or else will come chaos. Materialism will complete its sweep, engulfing everything that lies within its path. A great proportion of humanity simply drifts aimlessly through life. Some people are neither good nor bad, neither hot nor cold. They take no part in the affairs of the earth on which they live. They are content to let others do their work for them without even trying to find out if they are capable or not. Their only concern is that things may continue so that they can dance and revel their way through life. These people are callous and contemptuous of the sufferings of others. Life to them is stress, drink, sex, having a good time, mostly at the expense of others, criticizing and condemning all who do not fit in with their scheme of things. I am merely attempting to touch the fringe of some of the realities of what is called life. Today we have to fight all manner of evils. Still, even as in Sodom and Gomorrah, there are some righteous ones left, and it must be realized that only by their strenuous efforts can these social hypocrites be compelled to relinquish their positions of smug intrigue. Why has all this happened? Why is the world in such a state of seemingly hopeless chaos? The reason is not far to seek. The priesthoods of the nations have failed in their sacred trust. They have failed to paint nature's picture so that all men can admire it and seek to possess it as the one thing worth having. They have brought out all that is ugly to the exclusion of the beautiful. Through the ages, they have committed hideous crimes in the name of religion, and the leaders of Orthodox Christianity have misinterpreted Jesus' teachings utterly. Would it not have been better if they had learned the real symbology of the cross? The ecclesiastical minions will tell you that it symbolizes that Jesus died to save others by his blood, that he bought the sins of the world. Nothing of the sort. Jesus did not buy anybody's sins. Do you remember his reply to a certain question that was put to him concerning the kingdom of heaven? Unless a man be born again, he cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. Does that look as if he died to save others? No, his purpose was far greater than that. He wanted to show men that there was no death, and his answer concerning the kingdom of heaven, which I have just quoted, was to tell them that only by striving to educate themselves through successive rebirths on earth could they attain that spiritual state of cosmic consciousness called by the theologians the kingdom of heaven. Jesus preached education of the ego by successive lives on earth. Again, as ye sow, so shall ye reap, and many other of his sayings, for as you sow in one incarnation, so will you reap in the next. A while ago, before the commencement of the late war, in fact, I was given the following communication, and in view of the sinister developments of the present day, I consider it a duty to include here. Many, said my teacher, are the trials which man doth call upon himself. Many are the trials with which the world shall be beset. The days are at hand when nation shall rise against nation and class against class. The hordes of Satan are unleashed. Many of those evil ones of Lemuria and Atlantis are incarnate again today in Russia. Behold, they seek to envelop the earth with their hatred and their malice. They hate all that is beautiful and scorn all those who aspire to evolve. They have raised their voices and declared there is no God. They have closed the shrines of the Most High, and their faces have become an abomination before the blessed cosmos. Great shall be the war which shall be waged by these incarnate fiends against evolving humanity. Your statesmen think they are well in hand and helpless. I say unto you, do not underestimate their strength, for even as they are the incarnate instruments of evil, so are they exceeding cunning and have much power. Behold, they have cried out for a world revolution. This monster of communism, which has its cradle in Russia, would cut out the tongues of all those who are of the higher planes of thought. They would destroy tradition and common decency throughout the world. Who is to blame for the present chaos? The trouble in Russia was primarily the fault of those who, when they had power, should have used it for good and not have abused it. Are the days of Soviet rule in Russia any worse than the time of Ivan the Terrible and such others of his brood who ruled that unhappy land? Did the church then raise its voice and say, "How dreadful"? No, it did not. Again, have not the most awful atrocities been committed in the name of Jesus and of God by the Roman Church? Were not all who dared to raise a finger against papal powers done to death in the most terrible ways, in the days of the great Philip and in Italy itself, in the days of the Borgias and such like? Today, the only difference seems to be that communism commits crimes against religion in the name of the state, while the priesthoods of the past committed atrocities against the state and its subjects in the name of God. Thou shalt not kill? Had they taught the people under their guidance sound teachings instead of untenable dogma, the present chaotic state of the world would never have manifested itself. The vast millions of the world have been priest-ridden for many centuries now, and in Russia we have seen the reaping of the harvest. The desire of the church has ever been to teach that man must reach salvation through its priests and go to heaven. How Jesus must wonder at what has happened to the simple gospel which he taught his humble disciples. Caiaphas, mocking him, said, "He says he is the Son of God," and accused him of blasphemy against Jehovah. The ecclesiastics of today call him Christ the Lord, in fact, God manifest upon earth. Has it never occurred to these quarreling theologians that they are wrong? When Jesus said, "Ye who have seen me have seen the Father," he did not mean that he was God. He meant that the Father God was manifesting through him, that those who followed his teachings could see the Father in him and pursue the pathway of atonement. Then again, all these things shall ye do and greater was the Master's way of saying that each one could attain his standard of spirituality and do the same things that he himself did. One thing Jesus never said was that salvation could only come through the churches. Each person born onto this planet is spiritually responsible for himself. And if he can raise himself to the spiritualization of cosmic truth, he can then help those who stumble trying to follow in his footsteps. It is the duty of each individual to seek truth for himself, and the sooner this is realized, the sooner will the utopian age vainly striven after by purely material socialism spontaneously dawn. Men will know God and will see the folly of their petty feuds and jealousies. They will recognize that they themselves are the arbiters of their own destinies. The saying that knowledge is power has its spiritual as well as its material meaning. During and immediately after the two great wars, The churches had the greatest opportunity given to them that they will ever have. They failed and could not answer the many questions put to them at a time when all were faced with the possibility of violent and sudden physical death. Was this death eternal, or was it purely the death of the spirit's physical house? The church and its minions could give no definite answer, and instead of seeking one, they were busy hurling abuse at those to whom the bereaved mother or wife turned in her desperate longing for the true answer to this great question. No, the church did not answer it then, and it does not answer it now. The most blatant and futile failure of the churches in recent years was their inability to agree over the revision of the prayer book. Can we for one moment imagine that an intelligent infinity God cares how the prayer book is worded? There are so many vitally pressing humanitarian problems with which the churches might concern themselves. When the Orthodox churches can claim more knowledge than they have at present, and again find the straight and narrow path laid down by the founder of Christianity, then and only then can the battling hordes of evil be stemmed. Communism today has absorbed the greatest evil force into its bosom. It strives to overthrow all that is good, all that is clean, and all that is manly. It is the manifestation of the biblical Gog, referred to in the Old Testament as the people of the north and their king, or ruler who shall seek to overthrow the co-Adamics and Gentiles, opposing communism in these latter days, but who shall be swept away in the final struggle. It is useless for the religious champions of the world to pray to God to save humanity. Let them rather seek the knowledge wherewith to carry out their mission, which is to teach God to the people and so save the world from coming chaos. Let them look back to Jesus, whom they profess to follow, and remember his words, "A house divided against itself cannot stand but must fall." When Jesus spoke these words, he was thinking ahead. He knew what the priesthoods of the future would do with his teachings. The church, as the supposed mouthpiece of God, should strive first of all to teach uniformity of thought, but they are barren and turning desperately to God to help them. Will he? No. I think his answer to them is this: "Ye have professed to know my name, ye have professed to know me, yet have ye failed to teach my name, and have failed to teach me. Ye are the false prophets, and ye shall go your ways, that those who know me may be free to teach me." Before there can be a reconstruction, there must be a purging. The various cults, creeds, dogmas, and religions, together with their priesthoods, must be swept away that God himself may be seen and recognized. The way of salvation can only be found if men seek spirituality within themselves and realize that Orthodox religion has misled them. The present world chaos will continue until they rouse themselves and seek the God consciousness within. At present, fear, distrust, intrigue, and all manner of evil is holding mankind in subjection. In the parliament houses of the world today, fear and intrigue rule. Personal greed stalks through the ranks of those entrusted with governments. Taking all these things into consideration, how can they be reconciled with the true teachings of Jesus or anything approaching them? The exponents of Orthodox Christianity have had well nigh 2,000 years in which to expound his doctrines, yet they have utterly failed, and today tens of thousands have ceased to believe in anything and have lapsed into a state of apathetic agnosticism. They turn in any direction where a ray of hope shows itself: spiritualism, Christian Science, Theosophism, and many other cults. Whither are we going then? Already the writing on the wall is apparent. A few years ago it was suggested by certain theologians that the church should advertise to fill its pews. How terrible! Has God been so forgotten that his children must be exhorted to remember him by public advertisement on wayside hoardings, etc.? People are losing even the divine sense of art, which is apparent when looking upon the modern monstrosities which pass as such in sculpture or painting, and when we hear the discordant sounds produced by some modern composers. So we must individually find truth within the temples of our own souls, so that we may help to bring about the great world regeneration, which alone can lead us to the infinite Creator.